Have you ever wondered why the town of Churchill in Canada is known as the polar bear capital of the world? It's because every year, an extraordinary number of polar bears migrate to this region, especially during the fall. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into this fascinating phenomenon. Polar bears, the majestic wanderers of the Arctic, have a usual migration pattern that brings them to Churchill. You see, Churchill is conveniently situated right on their migration path, making it a favored stopover for these furry travelers. But what dictates this migratory pattern? Well, it's all about the timing. The polar bear's migration coincides with the formation of the first winter ice. As the temperatures drop and the ice begins to form, polar bears start their journey towards Churchill, turning this quaint town into a bustling bear hub. But here's where the plot thickens. Recently, the number of polar bears migrating to Churchill has been increasing at an unprecedented rate. So, what's causing this change? The answer lies in the shifting sea ice. Polar bears heavily depend on sea ice for their survival. It's their hunting ground, their mating place, and even a platform for resting. Let's delve deeper into this relationship. Sea ice is more than just a frozen expanse to these Arctic giants. It's a lifeline. They use it as a platform to hunt their primary food source, seals. As skilled swimmers, seals can easily evade polar bears in open water. However, on the ice, polar bears have the upper hand, ambushing seals at breathing holes or dragging them out from their dens. But climate change is tipping the scales. Rising temperatures are causing the sea ice to melt at an alarming rate. This doesn't just mean less hunting ground for the bears. It also means the ice is forming later in the year and melting earlier, shrinking the window for optimal hunting conditions. And here's the ripple effect. With less access to their primary food source, polar bears are struggling to build up the fat reserves they need to survive the harsh Arctic winters. This is particularly critical for females, who need these reserves to sustain themselves and their cubs during the long denning period. The situation is dire. The reduction in sea ice is making it harder for polar bears to hunt, pushing them closer to the brink of starvation. It's a survival crisis, and it's driving these majestic beasts to take desperate measures. As sea ice decreases, polar bears are forced to look for new habitats, leading them to migrate to places like Churchill in larger numbers. This town, known as the polar bear capital of the world, is witnessing an unprecedented influx of polar bears, a testament to the drastic changes happening in their Arctic home. In the face of a changing world, polar bears are showing us the true cost of climate change. Their migration is not just a journey, but a desperate quest for survival, a testament to the resilience of nature. And so, the story of the polar bear's migration to Churchill is not just their story, but ours as well. It's a stark reminder of the impact our actions have on the world and the urgent need to address climate change. As sea ice decreases, polar bears are forced to look for new habitats, leading them to migrate to places like Churchill in larger numbers. Climate change is not just shifting the sea ice, it's shifting the entire habitat of polar bears. As the Earth warms up, polar bears are finding it harder to survive. The sea ice they depend on for hunting seals is melting earlier in the spring and forming later in the fall. This reduction in the duration and extent of sea ice means less time for the bears to hunt their primary food source. With these changes, polar bears are facing a shorter hunting season, leading to a dramatic impact on their health and survival. Malnourished and stressed, bears are being forced to extend their range in search of food and new habitats. This is what's driving them to places like Churchill, known as the polar bear capital of the world. This migration is not just a natural phenomenon, but a desperate adaptation to the harsh realities of a changing climate. The polar bear's struggle for survival is a stark example of how wildlife is being affected by global warming. In conclusion, the migration of polar bears to Churchill is a stark reminder of the impact of climate change on wildlife. It's a call to action for all of us to do our part in conserving the environment for these magnificent creatures.